I'm Michael Peters, sports editor of the Tulsa World, sitting alongside our columnist Dave Sittler, here for another edition of Sports Extra on Demand. It's been kind of a surreal week in terms of college football, the big story coming out of State College with all of the issues surrounding Penn State football. Joe Paterno earlier today announced he was going to resign at the end of the year. You had a really good column yesterday in today's paper kind of talking about that situation, which I thought was interesting, how I guess foreshadowing your conversation was at the Final Four. I mean, is there any sense that you can make of this whole incident there?
Well, sadly, it's been a surreal season with, first the Miami stuff and then the realignment, but nothing close to this. Now, as we tape this, Joe Paterno says he's going to coach until the end of the season. I'll be stunned if he coaches Saturday against Nebraska. He should not coach against Nebraska. He put out that statement himself, not through the university. It just shows to me, I was totally wrong about Joe Paterno. I always thought, I was a believer in him, but he's got an ego that he wants these wins. He wants everything in his way. This is, Michael, I can't think, it compares to Baylor and the murder at Baylor maybe, but it's so horrific that he said in his statement he wants to do the right thing. Well, doing the right thing, he needs to quit right now, and I think that they need to clean house there.
Oh, yeah, I would think that they would have to disassociate themselves with everybody. I don't even know if you have a coach somewhere who used to play there who you'd even want to bring in. I mean, I think I mentioned in a discussion earlier a name that comes to mind, not that this would be someone who would take the job, but someone who I would think of would be like a Tony Dungy, someone who is seen as sort of a godfather figure of coaching, who's seen as above reproach. I mean, you're going to have to find someone like that to take that job. And the thing is, I'm not a huge, Joe Paterno guy. He's not somebody that moves the needle for me one way or the other. I kind of think he's probably 5 to 10 years beyond probably when he should have stayed on there. The thing is that all of the details are very terrible, but on the face of them, like the 2002 incident, I don't necessarily blame him for doing what he did until you see the rest of the story, until you go back and say, well, hey, in '98 they kind of knew this was going on, and probably in '99 the reason this guy resigned was probably because of these issues. You have to know Joe Paterno knows all of these things, who I've seen has been seen as this grand figure at Penn State who really controls the whole scene. So what happened in 2002, rather than seem like a man who was conflicted, who talked to his superiors to try to get something done, almost now seems like someone who was further covering for someone who they sort of covered for before. And I agree with you. I don't think that he should coach again. The president should step down. I think it should be a total house cleaning. And it's too bad for the players there who didn't have anything to do with this situation. But sometimes things are so much bigger than that you have to just throw everything out.
Some people would like to see them not even play the game this weekend against Nebraska. That might be too radical, but I love your Tony Dungy idea. Everybody's talking about Urban Meyer because he's always said that was really his dream job, not Ohio State. I think that Tony Dungy would be maybe the only one who could come in there and give it the idea that they're trying to cleanse this program, because if you look at Urban Meyer at Florida, he had a lot of players that got arrested for a lot of different things.
Right, he's a football coach. Yeah. He's not seen as kind of a gentleman of the game, and you have to find someone really who is, I would think, to really signal we are going to completely do things in a different manner. And I would think that anybody who's not cleaning out trash cans at Penn State's going to lose their job. From the top down. Another good week for Oklahoma State. They came back, had a big win over Kansas State. Once again, defense struggles, but they got to the magic number. Like I say in the blog this week, 2 is the magic number. And you have to be first or second. That's where you have to be. They're there. They control their own destiny. What kind of feel do you get from Oklahoma State? And is there any way that at least before Bedlam they can slip up?
No, I don't think they're going to go to Lubbock and blow it. Texas Tech is as big a mystery as anybody, but I hope they control their own destiny. I'm not sure, as soon as that Alabama-LSU game was over, they're all screaming for a rematch. That wasn't the game of the century. That wasn't even the game of the week. All right, now everybody raves about their defenses, both those teams, rightfully so. But OSU can rave about their offense. Can those defenses stop that offense? It might be a 50-49 game, but I'd love to see it happen. I think Whedon is so much the difference maker in this deal, and I would just like to see them get the opportunity. It's been a kind of a dream season for them. And
now, is this the year they finally do it? Because Oklahoma, I've always thought up until this week that Oklahoma was the better of those two teams. Just from me looking at it, just from the eye test, I like Oklahoma better than I like Oklahoma State, even with the loss to Texas Tech. Dominic Whaley out for the year. Ryan Broyles out for the year. Some of their better defensive guys, nicked up. You can't say enough for what Broyles has done for the program, the way he's matured, the way he's become a great receiver. Is this maybe finally Oklahoma State's year where everything is going in their direction?
Well, it looks that way. Like Broyles, I think he's close to catching like 40% of the passes that Landry Jones has completed over the last couple of years. 40% of them were to him. So that's a huge loss, but I think they've got enough receivers there, playmakers, that they can still be a dynamic offense. And Finch has come on and demonstrated if he can stay healthy. But I like you. Up until last week, I thought Oklahoma would win the Bedlam game. Now, I'm not sure. History suggests that Oklahoma State can't beat them when all these great opportunities are there. So I still lean a little bit toward OU going in there and spoiling this thing not only for OSU, but spoiling it for the Big 12 because it'll open the door for somebody else in the national title game. Personally, I would love to see Oklahoma State run the table and see what they could do against the SEC. Now, granted, the SEC has every right to brag because they've won the last 5 titles.
Right, but 5, that means they were the best conference the last 5 years.
That's right.
That doesn't mean they're the best conference now.
That's right. And and OSU's had some injuries too. The defense to me is just not very good. And up until Kansas State, yeah, they created turnovers, but we saw what happened somewhat. But to me, Kansas State is such a one-dimensional offense, and they let them put up that many points.
It's scary.
Yeah. The only thing that balances that is I'm not sure how good those two SEC offenses are, Alabama, LSU.
Right.
So I think they win it in a shootout maybe, and I never thought I'd see that in my lifetime, that Oklahoma State plays for the national title. It would be terrific. As I wrote earlier this week, there's a lot of snobs that don't want to see it happen.
But Oregon was last year. They broke through the
right.
barrier a little bit, and so there seems to be plenty of space for Oklahoma State to kind of break through and be another new kid on the block.
They really, yeah, and then who knows what that will do down the line. I mean, the recruiting. Now, Whedon, to me, is the greatest quarterback ever play there, and that's not a real long list anyway.
Right.
But, does that mean they're going to get a better caliber athlete like him? They lucked into him. The effects on this will be interesting because the people in Norman obviously don't like what's going on. Right. The new kid on the block is getting the attention they always have gotten in the past. So
right.
I think it's going to be a fascinating final 3 weeks of the season. Just hopefully OSU, neither one loses until then.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun bedlam. So we'll be here throughout the next several weeks to talk all about it. So that's all we have time for this week. We'll give you next week another edition of Sports Extra on Demand.